Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolfe Pit and another episode of What Are We Eating? White Castle is the original maker of the tiny hamburgers known as sliders that originally sold for a nickel a piece. That's why when you went to a White Castle, you didn't order one or two burgers, you ordered a sack of burgers. White Castles even periodically ran promotional ads in local newspapers which contained coupons offering 5 burgers for 10 cents. Takeout only though. I couldn't find the 5 burgers for 10-cent ad. This is the best one I could do. Granted, these burgers are quite small, but they were very tasty. Originally, White Castle burgers consisted of slightly less than 1 ounce of fresh ground chuck per burger that started off as a ball of meat. Thinly shredded onions were cooked along with the burgers, and a slice of dill pickle was added to the burger just before serving on the soft hamburger buns that were steamed on top of the burgers while they cooked. If you wanted mustard or ketchup, you had to add it yourself. And these are obviously not White Castle burgers. This is an old copycat video I did. I sure hope you guys think the video quality is a little bit better now than it was then. That was horrible, but it's still a work in progress. Nowadays, White Castle uses frozen square hamburgers with 5 holes in them for quicker and thorough cooking. The patties are not flipped, and they use rehydrated onions. 2 prime examples of cutting corners and quality to mass produce a product. That's corporate motherfucking America for you. Cut corners and quality and load your motherfucking pockets without giving a motherfuck about the consumer who is filling your pockets. Walt Anderson and Billy Ingram, the founders of White Castle, are rolling in their motherfucking graves that some snot-nosed motherfucker is selling their once famed fresh-made product now is a frozen motherfucking patty that looks like Bonnie and motherfucking Clyde shot it. If Dave Thomas, God rest his sweet soul, and Five Guys, whoever the those 5 guys are, can sell fresh ground beef hamburgers, then so can these sparkling clean kiss my motherfucking White Castle motherfucker. Wow, I think I need to calm down just a little bit. I haven't even gotten to the food review yet. Where's my beer? Just think of how much better these burgers were back in 1921 when White Castle was founded. Now, if you've been paying attention, it should be pretty easy to tell what we're doing the video on today. But instead of just the White Castle hamburgers, I'm doing the White Castle cheeseburgers. But I'm not doing them by themselves. I'm going to compare the famous White Castle cheeseburgers to the generic Food Lion cheeseburgers. Looking at the front of both boxes, I see something on the White Castle box I love. 100% beef. Now, I take back everything I said about White Castle. Well, maybe half. I cannot believe there's really a frozen burger without textured vegetable protein? Well, at this point, that's an assumption. I'll confirm that once I read the ingredients. But at this point, my taste buds were suddenly aroused. But they didn't mention the type of cheese or cheese product. Then I read on the Food Lion box, and my textured vegetable protein alarm went off when I read flame-broiled beef patty. I've learned that the word patty basically means devil's food. At least that's what mama said. And that textured vegetable protein or some other crap filler is going to be in there. And flame-broiled. That also rings the artificial flavoring alarm. One thing that may be promising, I simply see American cheese and not cheese product, which I've learned can be very scary from the Fast Bites burger. White Castle comes with 6 burgers, and Food Lion comes with 4, both in packs of 2. Onto the ingredients of the White Castle, and my eyes float past everything without a care in the world about anything else until I get to the hamburger ingredients. And what I see is orgasmic. 1 ingredient, the way it should be. Beef. Plain and simple. Now I take back a quarter of the other half of the bad stuff that I said about White Castle. And if you notice, the list of ingredients is fairly short compared to the novels we've seen recently. It is processed cheese, which is expected and fine with me. Now, onto the Food Lion ingredients. And I think my worst fear came true. The first thing I see, textured soy flour, which I'm assuming is basically the same thing as textured vegetable protein. We'll see soon enough. I also see yellow cheese product. Yum! Not appetizing at all. And it does have a few more ingredients than the White Castle burgers for sure. The nutrition facts for both are basically in the same ballpark. White Castle has more saturated fat, obviously, due to being 100% beef, which I can certainly live with. Both have a good amount of sodium, but Food Lion has more. Both have a pretty short shelf life, so you better eat them quick. No time to wait for the zombie. The White Castle burgers can be heated up on the stovetop or in the microwave. And it's recommended that they're thawed out. But ain't nobody got time for that! Since the Food Lion ones had to be microwaved, I thought it would only be fair to heat them both up the same way. Right out of the box, they look pretty much the same, but the Food Lion sliders may look a little bulkier. So I opened one end of the White Castle plastic and popped it into the nuclear oven for 60 seconds. Then, the Food Lion sliders get taken out of the plastic, wrapped in a paper towel, and then heated for 45 seconds. Both pairs of burgers ended up taking about 20 seconds longer than recommended. So it was time to unwrap the burgers and give them a taste. It was actually starting to smell pretty good in here. I was waiting for Wimpy to come through the door at any moment. The Food Lion buns are still pretty firm, but the White Castle buns were really nice and soft. So I gave the White Castle burger a try first. And it was good. It wasn't great, it was good. The bun was a little soggy, but it definitely had a nice beefy taste. But I can't tell you how nice it was to do one of these videos and to bite into a frozen burger and not feel like I was biting into my kitchen sponge. When you picked up the Food Lion burger, it definitely felt like a bigger burger. It was because the bun was so firm versus the softer White Castle bun. And the burger itself looked a little bit bigger. I wasn't really looking forward to trying the Food Lion sliders after learning they had the textured soy flour in them. But there was no turning back now. So I bit into it, and I've got to say, I was very surprised. Very surprised. It had a really good flavor and decent texture. It wasn't nearly as spongy as previous burgers with textured vegetable protein. It had a decent grilled flavor without tasting 100% fake. So I wanted to try the meat on its own without the bun and without the cheese and without the onions. So I took the burgers apart, and I've got to say, the White Castle meat didn't look very good. And then I'd have to say the Food Lion burger looked more beefy. But then I would finally say looks are deceiving. Even though the Food Lion burger might have looked a little better, you simply cannot beat the taste of 100% beef. With that said, neither burger was great, but they were both good in their own respect. I think White Castle would have been better if I thawed them out first, as recommended by White Castle. The burger and the bun were just a little bit mushy. The Food Lion burgers, the buns were very firm, almost like a stale McDonald's bun. The texture of the burger was actually pretty decent, and the flavor was exceptionally surprising. I'm not saying it was delicious, but it was good. So here's my opinion of the burgers. They're average. The Food Lion burgers surprised me. They were much better than I thought they would be. The White Castle burgers, they disappointed me. But I think they disappointed me because of the way I heated them up. I think if I would have thawed the White Castle first and then cooked them, as recommended by White Castle, they would have been a little better. So from the way I cooked both of them, they're both average burgers, so they will both get a 5 out of 10. Heated up properly, I think the White Castle will probably get a 6 and be above average. Thank you all very much for watching. I would definitely give both of these a try. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.